19 News Browns analyst Josh Cribbs joins us. Tough day for everybody, I know, associated with the Browns. And Josh, when you heard this news this afternoon, what was the first thing that came to your mind?
Well, I said, oh no. Yeah. You know, Jim Brown being, the icon that he is, right? And just thinking about how he has helped me and mentored me on the field. Even thinking about the breadth of the man he was, right. And knowing his legacy. And you could see Harry out there, and I was watching earlier, interviewing people and see how people actually remember him.
Right.
I remember him as that. Right. I remember him as the advisor, the mentor, the football great. But he was so much more. Flawed as we all are.
We all are.
I am flawed. I have so many flaws. But at my end, I hope that people will remember the great things, the community activist that Jim Brown was.
Right.
Even in his movies, because he would talk to us about how, he didn't make the money that the players make this time, and how they had to have jobs when he played in the NFL, part-time jobs, and just how all of the movies that he acted in, were all had some type of, even though some of them were humorous, they had messages, for and about the community. So when we talk about Jim Brown, beyond being on the field, we can mention the activists, the great work in the community, everything that he has meant to the fan base, to Cleveland.
Right.
Among the flaws, because we were there. There's a lot of people, and depending on the age and generation of the people you talk to, oh, I remember Jimmy as this.
Right.
Because a lot of people call him Jimmy Brown.
Right.
But, I have personal relation with him, both as a player and as a coach. Guys like Deion Sanders was on air when I was going through my contract situation, and he would call me and pay the man. And that was attributed to Jim Brown, the advice he gave me. I held out in OTAs, and Jim looked at me and said, I let your play on the field do the talking.
Speak for you, yeah.
Speak for itself. And guys like, it happened for me, and even currently with guys like Lamar Jackson. He played on the field.
Right.
And his talent, and that's the advice that Jim Brown gave us.
Right. I look back at the social activism for Jim Brown, and I look back at that meeting that he had, that famous meeting that he had with Bill Russell and with Lou Alcindor, who became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Muhammad Ali, to voice their opposition to the Vietnam War. And that then moved on to the social aspects of it for African Americans. Jim Brown had his hands in everything, and everything mattered to Jim Brown.
Absolutely. It was in the era of the dumb jock, supposedly.
Right.
So he was both intelligent.
Way before Shut Up and Dribble.
Way before. Masculine. He had to be that actor, but yet he was a role model. Mm-hmm. And again, he was not perfect, as none of us are. Right. So when we talk about those things and those triumphs that he made for the game, because anytime you mention football in all aspects, Jim Brown is mentioned.
Coming up.
They called him into the meeting when they changed the rules and allowed players to celebrate. Jim Brown was against it.
Right.
And I remember being in that room with former players and current players and NFL administration and Roger Goodell, and us having that conversation, because he didn't want the game to be, he didn't want us to put entertainer beside our name. He wanted professional athlete. Right. He wanted more class, because the NFL was predominantly black players.
Right.
So he didn't want us to be out there like clowns and entertaining. And he wanted us to show class. So a lot of the former and current players was like, yes. So the players that took from that meeting was like, you know what, I'm gonna celebrate with class.
Right.
Because the NFL went ahead and still allowed players to celebrate, and it is what it is now. But Jim Brown, he spoke for the player, and his words rang out. So that's how he will be remembered when we talk about his legacy. Just ask the heartbeat of the fan base and the people who supported him, not just on the field, because he was so much more.
Yeah, and for a guy like me, Jim Brown's important to me because he was my dad's favorite football player. So, Josh, thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate your time. Really, it's such an important day for the Cleveland Browns. A sad day, but a day where we can go back and look at the legacy of this man and how much good that he did. Tiffany?